Workplace violence is a tragic and all too common reality in today's world. In this video, we will examine the 2012 Fresno Meat Plant Shooting, a tragic incident that unfolded in Fresno, California, at Valley Protein, a meat processing facility. This senseless act of violence resulted in the loss of lives and left a community in mourning. Join us as we explore the events leading up to the shooting, the details of what happened on that fateful day, and the impact it had on the victims and their families. 1.1 Valley Protein, a meat processing plant. Valley Protein was a meat processing plant located in Fresno, California, where employees worked to produce various meat products. Like many industrial workplaces, the environment was demanding, with workers often facing long hours and physical labor. The plant employed a diverse workforce, including many immigrants seeking employment opportunities. 1.2 The shooter, Lawrence Jones. Lawrence Jones, a 42-year-old employee of Valley Protein, was the individual responsible for the tragic shooting. Jones was a longtime worker at the plant and was known to his colleagues as a quiet and reserved man. He had been employed at the meat processing facility for over 14 years, working primarily as a utility worker. In the weeks leading up to the shooting, Jones had displayed signs of mental instability and distress. According to some coworkers, he had shown erratic behavior and had been experiencing personal issues. However, these concerns did not seem to escalate to the point where anyone felt an immediate threat was present. The tragic events of November 6th would later raise questions about how warning signs of workplace violence might be better recognized and addressed. 2.1 The morning of November 6th, 2012. The morning of November 6th, 2012, started like any other day at Valley Protein. Employees arrived at the plant, ready to begin their shifts. Lawrence Jones arrived at work that morning with a clear and disturbing plan in mind. Shortly after arriving at the plant, Jones retrieved a .357 caliber handgun, which he had brought with him. 2.2 The shooting begins. At approximately 8:30 a.m., Jones began his rampage inside the Valley Protein plant. He entered the plant's main building and immediately opened fire on his coworkers. Panic and chaos ensued as employees scrambled to find safety. Jones moved through the plant, shooting at anyone in his path. The shooting spree lasted only a few minutes, but had devastating consequences. 2.3 Victims of the shooting. Jones shot a total of 4 people during the attack. 2 employees, Salvador Diaz and Salvador Valencia, were killed instantly. 2 other employees were critically injured, suffering severe gunshot wounds. The victims were all longtime employees of Valley Protein and were well liked by their colleagues. The senseless violence left the plant's workers and their families devastated. 2.4 Jones takes his own life. After the shooting, Jones turned the gun on himself. He walked to the back of the plant, where he took his own life with a self-inflicted gunshot wound. When police arrived on the scene, they found Jones' body and the bodies of his victims. The motive behind Jones' actions remained unclear, leaving many to wonder what could have driven him to commit such a horrific act. 3.1 Immediate response. Law enforcement and emergency responders quickly arrived at the scene after receiving reports of the shooting. The plant was locked down and nearby schools and businesses were alerted to the situation. The injured victims were rushed to local hospitals, where they received emergency medical care. Tragically, the 2 employees who were critically injured later succumbed to their injuries, bringing the total death toll to 4, including Jones. 3.2 Community grief and mourning. The Fresno community was left in shock and mourning following the shooting. Vigils and memorial services were held to honor the victims and support their families. Valley Protein temporarily ceased operations as the investigation into the shooting unfolded. Counselors and support services were provided to the plant's employees, many of whom were traumatized by the events they had witnessed. 3.3 Investigation and motive. Investigators worked to piece together the events leading up to the shooting and determine a possible motive. Despite interviews with coworkers, family members, and friends, a clear motive for Jones' actions remained elusive. Some speculated that Jones may have been dealing with personal or mental health issues, but no definitive answers were found. The lack of a clear motive added to the tragedy, leaving many questions unanswered. 4.1 Understanding Workplace Violence. The Fresno Meat Plant Shooting is a tragic reminder of the reality of workplace violence. Incidents like this highlight the importance of recognizing the signs of potential violence and taking steps to prevent it. Workplace violence can have devastating consequences, not only for the victims and their families, but also for the wider community. 4.2 Measures to Prevent Workplace Violence. Following the shooting, discussions about workplace safety and the need for better mental health support in the workplace were renewed. Employers, employees, and policymakers are encouraged to work together to create safer work environments. This includes implementing comprehensive workplace violence prevention programs, providing training on how to recognize warning signs, and ensuring that employees have access to mental health resources. 4.3 Remembering the Victims. The lives lost in the Fresno Meat Plant Shooting will never be forgotten. Salvador Diaz and Salvador Valencia were remembered by their families, friends, and coworkers as hardworking and dedicated individuals. Their deaths left a void in the lives of those who knew and loved them. As we reflect on this tragedy, we honor their memory and hope for a future where such senseless acts of violence can be prevented. Conclusion. The 2012 Fresno Meat Plant Shooting serves as a tragic reminder of the impact of workplace violence and the need for awareness and prevention. While we may never fully understand what drove Lawrence Jones to commit such an atrocity, we can honor the memory of the victims by working towards creating safer workplaces and supporting those who may be struggling with personal or mental health issues. Thank you for joining us on this important and emotional journey. If you found this video informative, please like, comment, and subscribe to Peaceful Stories for more content like this. Let us continue to remember the victims and advocate for a world where everyone can work without fear of violence.